Key point 1. Measuring intelligence with numbers overlooks the importance of cognitive skills and performance. In contemporary Western culture, there is a widespread notion that intelligence is a generic attribute that can be evaluated and represented by a single numerical number, intelligence quotient or IQ. However, there are numerous bits of intelligence working in relative neurobiological isolation, which is compelling proof that we can't measure our intelligence. Keep in mind that anything worth teaching can be presented in various ways using our multiple intelligences. Dr. Gardner categorizes the multiple forms of human intelligence as linguistic, musical, logical-mathematical, spatial, bodily kinesthetic, intrapersonal, and interpersonal. Gardner's theory implies that accepting the existence of multiple intelligences makes it easier to understand why some people possess some skills while others don't. For example, knowing musical intelligence exists makes it easy to understand why singers like Beethoven or Andrea Bocelli have an excellent command of their voice and sounds. Brain scientists and geneticists are documenting the incredible differentiation of human capacities. Computer programmers are creating systems that are intelligent in different ways, and educators are freshly acknowledging that their students have distinctive strengths and weaknesses. Dr. Howard Gardner. Additional research and exploration of multiple intelligences may prove it feasible to design new tests that identify a child's intellectual strengths and limitations, which would, in turn, assist educators in better developing children's potential. This summary is perfect for scientists, philosophers, and anybody interested in learning more about human social behavior and emotions. Key point 2. The current definition of intelligence severely restricts our intellectual capacity. The modern-day notion of intelligence has grown so prevalent that it sounds like a collection of several measurable qualities. Although it is more effective as a descriptive phrase to characterizing an individual's ability to flourish in a given profession, it is especially beneficial in the fields Dr. Gardner gathered. He provided a list of brain abilities to support his idea of multiple intelligences. Remember, with proper encouragement, enrichment, and teaching, most individuals can develop their intellect to a competent level. Notably, Gardner acknowledged that his list of criteria does not include all possible considerations as he assesses intelligence as a whole with numerous levels of analysis. A comprehensive list would only be conceivable if he concentrated on a single group of studies, such as neurophysiology. Why bother attempting to define intelligence when it is relative and impacted by various factors? For example, it is probable that the intellect level of someone who lives in a third-world nation will be lower than that of someone in a developed country. In addition, education, poverty rate, and other factors significantly impact intelligence. Although intelligence varies from person to person depending on various conditions, it is possible to draw broad generalizations from several instances. The following chapters will explain what kinds of intelligence we have and how we can use them to understand our cognitive abilities better. Key point 3. The hypothesis of many intelligences may be utilized to help individuals realize their full potential. Researchers disagree on whether intelligence is inherited. Some experts think genetics may affect cognitive scores by 80%, while some claim just 20% is handed down. Still others even argue that IQ cannot be lineal. In light of this, should we drop all language that refers to intellectual prowess as an inherited trait? We can think of some people as genetically promising for a certain skill. However, this doesn't mean they'll become good at it. For example, someone can be born with the ability to play chess well, but if they don't get a chessboard, they won't go very far. But if they live in a place where chess is played, and there is a lot of stimulation to play, people with a lot of potential can quickly reach a high level of skill. From a biological point of view, the environment can help someone reach a high level of intelligence in certain fields. However, the knowledge of genetic inheritance is very complex, and it's not always easy to isolate an individual's genetic ability from what they learned in the environment. Don't forget, knowing where and when to learn is critical for mastering new abilities. Canalization and plasticity are two fundamental neurobiological principles that might help us better comprehend human thoughts. Canalization occurs when an organic system grows predictably. For example, the human nervous system begins to mature in the embryo's neural tube. Then they travel to form brain and spine portions. Multiple environmental factors may influence development or plasticity, implying that even if a child's brain is impaired within their first year, they may still communicate properly later. Language is incredibly flexible in the brain. However, as we age, our brain plasticity decreases, which is why an adult who has had their left hemisphere destroyed may struggle with language. The theory of multiple intelligences is important as it could enable society to make the most of children's brains. Educators, for example, could use their early knowledge of students' interests to help them get a better education. Key point 4. Being linguistically intelligent means having an in-depth understanding of language work. Language comprehension is one of the most researched types of intelligence from a neurobiological standpoint. Researchers have a good understanding of how language skills develop, from a baby's first words to the sequences they say as they grow older, and the adult-like syntax they can use by the time they are 4 or 5 years old. Don't forget that people speak several languages regardless of culture, so individuals with high language intelligence may express themselves verbally and physically more easily. The language songwriters, composers, and poets use is very important to them. They pay special attention to the many meanings of a word, making it simpler to write using common or easy words in unusual ways. They also consider how they could utilize a word in other lines and if certain words work well together. But poetry writing isn't the only thing you can do with your language abilities. For example, it's critical in rhetoric, which uses language to persuade others to do something, such as what politicians do to influence public opinion. Additionally, we can use linguistic intelligence to assist people in understanding concepts and metaphors, among other things. Most people's linguistic abilities reside in the brain's left hemisphere. Damage to specific areas of this hemisphere impairs certain linguistic skills. For example, people who suffer from problems with Broca's area, which is a part of the frontal lobe, tend to write in a style that is strikingly similar to Ernest Hemingway's iceberg theory style, but in a much more complicated way. This straightforward writing style only displays a small amount of information, but conceals a deeper meaning beneath the surface. Linguistic intelligence is an essential part of communication skills because discourses and conversations become more understandable when people have a good command of their language. Key point 5. Sensitivity to the qualities of sound is a key component of musical intelligence. According to general scientific research, musical intelligence is associated with a person's ability to communicate orally and auditorily. Remember, we may improve our musical intelligence by understanding harmonic tones in several ways. Musically astute people can hear and recognize patterns very quickly. Their brains think in terms of styles. For example, they discover patterns in new musical information to help them learn. They also look for patterns, lyrics, and rhymes in how people speak and say things. Musically intelligent people have a strong sense of what music is all about. We can think of melodic composition as the culmination of musical intelligence. In the same way, poetry can be regarded as the culmination of linguistic intelligence. Even though only a small percentage of the population will ever go on to work as a composer, many people can at least appreciate the fundamental structure of music. They can then go on to pair pieces with a specific pattern with those having a similar rhythm. Music, like language, heavily relies on the auditory tract of the person listening to it. How the brain controls and stores pitch is distinct from how the brain processes and stores other sounds, such as language. In her research, psychologist Dana Deutsch asked a group of volunteers to remember a succession of tones. Then she added other noises to the original tones to keep them amused. She recorded a 40% error rate when the sounds were composed of many tones. In contrast, they performed significantly better when Deutsch replaced the original tones with words or numbers. Their error rate dropped to just 2%. It demonstrates that mastery of sound and rhythms alone is insufficient to develop musical intelligence. Other factors, such as mastery of words and numbers, contribute significantly to increased musical prowess. Key point 6. Conceptual thinking is the focus of logical mathematical intelligence. The ability to analyze issues logically, perform mathematical operations, and detect problems scientifically is called logical mathematical intelligence. It is also the ability to create equations and proofs, perform calculations, and solve abstract concepts. Swiss psychologist Jean Piaget proposed a basic logical mathematical hypothesis. Objects were placed in a circle in front of him when he was a youngster. Piaget counted them and found 10. He then pointed to the objects in a different sequence and found 10 things again. Finally, after numerous experiments, he discovered that the number 10 symbolized all the components in the set, independent of their count order. Remember, Abstract, symbolic thinking, sequential reasoning, and inductive and deductive thinking are all aided by mathematical intelligence to increase brain performance. Due to his early experiences, Piaget naturally understood numbers, but the process required many of his logical mathematical skills. The first step was interacting with the physical environment, which grows more abstract with time and eventually crosses into the logical and scientific territories. When applying their knowledge to real-life situations, ambitious young mathematicians will likely encounter a long chain of mathematical statements. Remembering the links in the chain might help them understand these statements, but mathematicians aren't known for their memory. Instead, their understanding of the logical connections between mathematical statements and their overall meaning helps them solve complex questions and equations. So, the importance of mathematical abstraction cannot be overstated. This discipline deals with irrational numbers, paradoxes, and possible and impossible worlds, requiring you to draw parallels between analogies. Do math abilities exist in the brain? There's only a weak consensus, but it appears centered in the left hemisphere. Dementia, for example, affects the left hemisphere, which causes logic mathematical skills to deteriorate. Children with Gerstmann syndrome, for example, have difficulty recognizing and identifying their fingers and telling left from right. Key point 7. It's possible to see and navigate the environment more effectively using spatial intelligence. Imagine a large animal, such as a horse, and try to determine which point on its body is higher, the tip of its tail or the base of its head. Consider folding a piece of paper in half 3 times as a second illustration, and try to determine how many rectangular shapes are created by the folds. When you try these tasks, you'll likely be able to tell immediately whether they're difficult for you. Although they differ in many ways, they are both associated with spatial intelligence. They necessitate the use of mental imagery and spatial awareness on your part. Specifically, this intelligence is concerned with the ability to accurately interpret images, modify and adjust that perception, and attempt to replicate that perception even when there is no visual stimulation. Spatial intelligence is present in those who can comprehend and modify patterns in open spaces and more confined areas. Individuals with spatial intelligence can recognize and manipulate large-scale and fine-grained spatial images. Remember, mental imaging, abstract awareness, graphic and creative talents, and active imagination are essential for spatial intelligence. Although most people think about how to see, spatial intelligence can function even if you cannot see anything at all. Thus, people who are blind can still have excellent observation skills despite their disability. Individuals born blind cannot see certain aspects of the environment, such as color. However, they can determine the size and scale of objects by using their other senses, such as hearing. Even when people are blind, spatial abilities allow them to navigate their way around and find their way back to where they came from. They also help people become more aware of the small details and qualities found in works of art, such as paintings or sculptures. It doesn't matter what you use the spatial ability for. This intelligence can be seen in all cultures, though some people use it more than others. For example, we need spatial intelligence for merging into traffic and imagining what the solar system looks like. Did you know, since your brain's neuroplasticity decreases with age, learning new languages gets more challenging as you get older? Key point 8. Skillful body use reveals the presence of bodily kinesthetic intellectual ability. Using one's whole body or parts of the body to solve problems or make things is called bodily kinesthetic intelligence. This process includes things like using one's hands or mouth to make things. People with bodily kinesthetic intelligence use their bodies and minds to perform skills or solve problems. In many cultures, the way your body moves has little to do with intellect because we define intelligence as the ability to think rationally. If you look more closely, you'll see that many cognitive activities have a physical component. Think about a doctor doing surgery, for example. They need to move very carefully to do what they need to do. Remember, even if you're not thinking about what you're doing, you can train your body to take calculated risks with bodily kinesthetic intelligence. Famous hockey player Wayne Gretzky would hold the puck for an extra second when he was in front of the net, causing the game to get out of sync and throwing the goalie out of his rhythm. This move gave him the advantage of reading the goalkeeper's movement before taking a shot at the goal. When criticized, he said that no one would say that a doctor had learned his job by instinct, so why should they expect the same about his understanding of the game? It's also false to assert that the brain has no involvement in physical movement, for it does. although as a means to a goal rather than to the end itself. The central nervous system assists in refining, redirection, and adaptation of motor activity to better suit a person's objectives. In another way, the body and the brain continually interact to carry out a certain motor task. Additional problems in the brain, specifically in the left hemisphere, might limit a person's ability to move and perform motor tasks. Take, for example, the different varieties of apraxia that exist. A person suffering from this ailment is cognitively aware of a request and is physically capable and willing to carry it out, yet they cannot do it. Key point 9. Interpersonal and intrapersonal intelligence make us better persons as individuals and as a team. Interpersonal intelligence means understanding other people's motives, desires, and preferences. You can work well with others if you have this type of intelligence. Intrapersonal intelligence, on the other hand, is the ability to understand oneself, have a good working model, and use this information to help control one's own self. It's important to point out the difference between intrapersonal and interpersonal intelligence. There are many ways to be a good intrapersonal person. You need to be able to get in touch with your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Marcel Proust is a great example if you want to learn how to write about your feelings introspectively. Proust was a French novelist, critic, and essayist who wrote the monumental novel In Search of Lost Time. On the other hand, interpersonal intelligence is all about knowing other people, like their emotional states, personality types, possible motives, and intentions. It might be best to think of Mahatma Gandhi as an example. He was known for being able to understand and change people's minds. Remember, effective communication involves knowing how to process our thoughts and address others in suitable ways for the situation we find ourselves in. Regarding intelligence, both inter and intrapersonal are located in the same part of your head, the frontal lobes, where information from the senses and the limbic system are mixed. In simple form, it's where information about your perceptions, including how you think about other people, come together with data about your emotions. Though everyone has the same neurological foundation from their bits of intelligence, the ways they show up in culture are very different. This is true even for the other intelligences, which show up in different ways in different places. For example, many religious beliefs with different doctrines guide some people. For individuals who follow these rules, their worldview would differ from someone following another religion. Interpersonal and intrapersonal intelligence go a long way in shaping how people view the world. More often than not, our society reflects who we are, so it's essential to know how to understand ourselves and get to know more about others in the right way. Conclusion. Studying and understanding the various types of intelligence goes a long way in showing how the brain works and how we can tweak our neural system to do some things that seem difficult. The study of the brain and how it works is one of the essential parts of science, and humans have been able to correct some cognitive errors through scientific and psychological research. Dr. Gardner's position on the types of intelligence has shown that we can possess diverse skills in isolation or together, meaning that although the brain is primarily responsible for processing information in the body, a fault in one brain area shouldn't affect other areas of intelligence. He created the theory of multiple intelligences to explain that individuals are not born with all their intellect. This hypothesis challenged the conventional wisdom that general intelligence is only concerned with cognitive capacities. Individuals are beneficiaries but also victims of these time changes. A person with one set of skills may be a tremendous mathematician or scientist in one area. His skills are just what was needed, while proving relatively useless in succeeding or prior historical epochs. Dr. Howard Gardner. Gardner's model may have gained popularity partly because of the highly attractive premise that everyone has their unique pattern of strengths and weaknesses, supported by research. Many individuals find that focusing on the variety of skills is more rewarding than assuming people vary in a key aspect of general intelligence, estimated via overall IQ scores. Try this. Make time to learn a new skill. Focus on learning a new skill by dedicating maximum effort to learning how to become better at what you do. You can do this through constant practice and open-mindedness.